Thank you. Please. Thanks for making a dream come true. And yeah. I'm excited to debrief with our teams and to hear from you guys just the things that we're impacting. And I've had some great conversations with many of you, some of your takeaways and highlights. People say, oh, it's amazing. Well, tell me why. Like, what's going on? And what's really rewarding and satisfying for us, and I know for me, is you guys say the exact same words down to the sentence structure of what we actually wrote down. This is what we want to accomplish. And that's just incredibly rewarding. Obviously, our teams have worked immense amount of time on setting all this up, and there's so many people to give thanks to. And I want to highlight one specific individual is Mr. Evan Hall in the back here. Evan, would you wave? Evan is my assistant amongst many other things, and this is actually his first conference that he's actually organized and administrated, and he nailed it and crushed it. So I gave him the nickname Mr. Conference. So Evan, great job, thank you. And we have so many volunteers. They're not all actually in the room. Some of them are working right now. But if you help volunteer at all this week, would you stand? We want to just honor you at all. Just stand. Would you just give them a massive thanks? So thank you all for helping to make this a reality. And I'm excited to close out the last 3 days. And I know many of us are excited to lay our head on a pillow and hopefully never wake up, well, at least by Sunday morning. So, but no, it's worth it. I love these intense 3 days. I think it's amazing to just get locked in and go at it hard for 2 or 3 days, because there's something special about putting a lot in a moment and a lot in a span of time, because it's a shared experience. It's a life experience, and hopefully it's a mark in your life. It's something changed from this point forward, and that's really what our dream is. I don't know if you've ever wrestled with it, but the algorithms in being human is really interesting. When I look at the equations of what it means to be a human being, there are so many things that intrigue me and mystify me and confuse me. And there's 2 dimensions into being human that I want to just kind of talk about loosely tonight. And one of them is this reality that, have you noticed God goes silent when you make a major decision? It's this reality of he seems to disappear when you need him the most. Especially when you're making major life decisions or significant things happen, and we feel like, where are you? I mean, you were with me when I didn't really need you, but when I really need you, I don't know where you are. And that's just one of the interesting dynamics of being human, is that reality. And then the other part of the algorithm that mystifies me is the concept of time. The whole idea of time and what it is, and how do you quantify it, how do you understand it, and how do you move in time, and how do you experience it, and how should you or should you not? And there's all these things that just really intrigue me. And I want to just kind of unpack both of these, and then we're gonna land the plane. But it's fascinating in regards to when it comes to the idea of human free will. When it intersects with the will of God, that's a very intriguing space. There's a lot of nuance there. And it's so easy to just kind of go to one extreme or the other extreme, because we don't want to live in the nuance. We don't want to live in the space between the truths. We want certainty. The challenge with that is we build certainty around a framework that helps us. But we actually miss out on a lot more that God is actually trying to draw us into. And so human free will is fascinating, and we all love free will until we have to make a major decision. Then we wish God would just make it for us. And then he makes the decision for us, and then we say, okay, can I have my free will back? It just doesn't work that way. I wish it did. I wish there was like a eject, your turn, okay, thank you, I'll take it back, now my turn. I mean, life would be so much simpler if that was the case. And maybe this is not your story, but as I look back on our life and my wife and I, and been married for as long as we have, and there's been some major decisions we've had to make, even minor ones. If I were to do, at least from my perspective, a statistical analysis, God was very vocal when it didn't really matter. I want you to have this for lunch today. Why do you care what I'm eating today? I want you to do this. It just feels like meaningless, pointless things. And then you're wrestling with, should I leave this job and go move to another country or another city? And it's crickets. It's like, God, yesterday you were talking to me a lot, but what I really need you to answer me is right here. So we've got this dilemma around free will that is really intriguing in the voice of God. And what makes it more complex for us of the Christian faith is we've got this phrase in the scripture that says the will of God, the perfect will of God. And that doesn't help. It just makes it more confusing. And it's interesting that my personal experience in what I do and interacting with lots of people over the last specifically 30 years of my life, there is this incredible desire to find out what the will of God is for my life. And rightfully so. It's not something we should take lightly. It's not something that's flippant. It's actually, I understand why it matters so deeply to us. And in my interactions of being a pastor, being a leader, being the kind of person I am, and just I'm so curious about people's stories. And what I've learned is that however you define the will of God will determine your definition of free will. However you put a definition on that, your understanding on that will actually indicate to me, oh, this is your decision-making process. And I want to just talk about this a little bit tonight and just kind of maybe look at it from several different angles. Let me just start with this. If God makes every decision for you in life, you'll have nothing to give an account for at the end of your life. If you posture your entire spirituality, your entire humanity, your entire creating whatever future it is, that I only do what he says to do, then guess what? All you can say at the end of your life is I was obedient, which is beautiful. I'm not even implying or trying to diminish that. But I have to wonder. I think God is after more than just simple obedience. I can't see why God would create the universe that we still don't fully understand and then want to keep us, you stay right here. Don't you move. You do what I say every time. Now, I want to propose to you that the dimension of obedience is not the highest goal of a relationship. It's actually the lowest goal of a relationship. And I think what we've done, we've flipped the script and we said, man, the ultimate goal to follow God is to be obedient. That's the ultimate goal. I want to propose to you, my ultimate goal of my wife is not to only she obeys me and I obey her. It has to go deeper and farther than that. And I think one of the dilemmas that we pigeonholed ourselves is our framework around the will of God is we've reduced it down to just obeying God. Now, to be very clear, I am not diminishing obedience, and when God says do it, we all know it's a good idea to just do it. But isn't it interesting that he doesn't talk when we need him to tell us what to do? So we have a dilemma. So we do Christian activity, and that looks like more prayer. That looks like fasting. That looks like I'm going to get someone that knows God really well to put their hand on me and pray for me. And we go on these spiritual journeys, and I don't know if you've noticed, but it doesn't seem to help. It just kind of makes it more and more like, God, you're talking to me, but you're not actually telling me what to do. I want to propose that if you're not hearing God tell you what to do, maybe he's inviting you into another dimension of relationship. Maybe he's bringing you to another reality of a future of what's actually possible. And then we have this interesting idea. We all have our own definition of what the will of God is. It could be something concrete. It could be something static and like it's this. And for some of us, it's more abstract and ethereal, and we've got our own definition. But it's interesting that there's a common phrase, and maybe you don't say it, but I hear it frequently, more in the older generation specifically. I think it's something that it was kind of taught a lot within the church framework. And it was almost a joke, like, if it's good, then it must be the will of God for me. Or we say, oh yeah, that was the will of God for my life. Like something happened beautiful, it was easy, it's like walking on the beach of life, like everything is just beautiful, it's white, sandy beaches. Oh, this is the will of God for my life. So let's just say if that is your framework, if that is your idea, that is your algorithm, then the challenge is you will say no to anything God is actually trying to grow you in, because it's hard. And so we have created an entire framework of humanity that says don't do anything hard, because that's not the will of God. God would never lead us into these spaces. He would never ask me to climb this mountain that's impossible to climb. I hear this frequently. I wrestle with it. I'm working on diminishing that language, but we all say, oh, God would never ask me. Like that whole statement is built around the ideology that God won't lead you into hard things to actually grow you. And so one of our challenges, the dilemmas we created, we look at the will of God and say, what's the will of God? Oh, it's only when I get the white, sandy beaches of life. And so when something comes along, like God wants you to move to a city that doesn't have a lot of light, or maybe He wants you to step into a dimension of humanity that no one cares about God. And you think, I can't go there. That's not the will of God for my life. Well, maybe it actually is. And then we have to go, how do you define the will of God? What is that to you? So we've got this dilemma around the will of God and the free will, the human free will. And when you don't get answers, it's interesting that there's an interesting thread within, it's pretty common, that I don't want to make a mistake. So our solution for not making a mistake is to do nothing. Our solution to, man, I don't want to make God mad at me, so I'm going to do absolutely nothing. And so I want to ask you a question. Do you think the will of God is meant to be discovered with caution? Or do you think the will of God is meant to be discovered with risk and adventure? I actually believe it's the latter. I said something on opening night. I said, we need to move toward a green light paradigm instead of a red light paradigm. Some of you, this is really hard because it's been so ingrained into the way you view the world. Like, I don't move, I don't do anything. Everything's a red light. And the challenge is God is expanding at such a rate we don't even, the universe is expanding, and why are we reducing ourselves to not moving, not doing anything? The other part of the algorithm is the concept of time. Time is fascinating to me. Time on Earth is very different than time on other planets. And if you're a movie geek, Interstellar just kind of really just unpacks this. It's one of the most incredible movies. It's one of the best movies made in our era, at least. And it wrestles with this idea of what does time mean here versus there. And my favorite scene in the movie, or the most intriguing scene, is when they went down to that planet and all water, and they were down there for like a very short period of time, and they finally made it back to their mothership, and they get on the mothership, and the guy that was on the mothership aged 23 years when they were just on this planet for moments. So the whole concept of time, and it's interesting, joy actually changes your perspective of time. When you are having the time of your life, time is flying. And when you're having the worst time of your life, time is so slow. And it's interesting too, because when children are born into this world, they don't have a framework of time yet. We know the Egyptians are kind of the ones that kind of figured out time. They understood the mathematics of it. The Swiss mastered it, and the Western world monetized it. And when children step into this world, this is why they want to eat at 3 in the morning or have lunch when it's not lunchtime. They don't understand the framework of time, so we have to teach them our perspective of time. And it's not until they get into elementary age or into some formal school or some type of structure, they begin to understand, oh, I have to live according to the hand that are moving on the clock. So if you go to a school where the school bell rings, okay, 8 o'clock school starts, I need to be at my desk. I need to be sitting down and I need to be ready to go. The bell rings, okay, I get up, now I go to my next class. Until we all of a sudden begin to learn the concept of time and its relevance to us on earth. And every culture has a different perspective of time. And then you get into teenage years, and teenagers need to learn the concept of time, because if they don't learn about it then, it's going to get really rough later on in life. You're going to get a bill in the mail, and you're not going to realize you need to pay the bill on time, or else you're going to feel the consequences of that. And then you enter your 20s, and I love 20-year-olds. I know that a bunch of you, and I'm going to make fun of you, but don't worry, I'm going to make fun of everybody in this room. But I love 20-year-olds because 20-year-olds have this very interesting perspective on time. They have no thought that tells them time is limited. They're so young, they're like, I got forever. I'm not even thinking about the other end of my life. I'm just starting. And what's fun about it, 20-year-olds, is they think they understand what it means to be successful. So they figured it out. Like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing in my life. X, Y, Z, this is it. I'm a master of my life plan. This is what I'm doing. And I love watching them as they travel through the decade of the 20s. And as they start approaching the 30s, they begin to slowly realize, I actually don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm happening to life, but all of a sudden they realize, no, life is actually happening to me. And when you start entering your 30s, your entire goal is just to get home, put on Netflix, or go to sleep. Like, that's your goal in life. Because you're like, I don't care anymore about all my major plans in life. I just want to make it through the day. And then you throw relationships and kids and marriage and job and mortgages. All of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this was not what I planned. And we start to lose our sense of like time. What's fun about the 30s is as you travel through your 30s and you start experiencing the 40s creeping up on you, if you don't let go of your control, life will do it for you. And you step into your 40s and you begin to realize, I have no idea who I am. It's been stripped. Any 40-year-old, you're in that decade right now. And you're asking these massive existential questions. Why am I alive? What am I doing here? And I remember distinctly, it was my 42nd birthday. And I had my birthday. I'm going to be 49 in a month. My wife is 49. She likes to really champion the fact that she is wiser and older than me by a whole month and 3 weeks. But I remember I turned 42, and I had this really interesting thought. I thought, I'm halfway dead. I thought, I'm halfway now. No, I'm hoping to live longer than 84, but so I looked up statistics. I said, what is the average lifespan of a white American male? 77 years old. I thought, dear God, I'm way past that halfway point. And it was just an existential moment. It wasn't morbid, it wasn't sad, it wasn't depressing, it was just, wow. I don't have as much time as I thought I had. In your 20s, you don't think about this. But when you get into your 40s, you're like, wait a second. What have I done? And then you kind of look back and go, what have I done with my life? Have I done anything of value or worth? So that's why the 40s, they call it a midlife crisis. I don't think it's the midlife crisis. I think it's just an existential assessment. And you might not like the result of it. And that's why we call it a crisis. But I don't know how to get around the reality. You're halfway through your life. You're experiencing time until this point, and then you go, wow, what am I going to do with the rest of my life now? And a lot of people try to repeat their path instead of stepping to a newer version of who they are. And so we get into your 40s. And so right now I'm 48. I'll be 49 in a month. And 50 is talking to me. I can tell I'm changing psychologically. I can tell my emotions are changing. And it's some interesting thoughts. And I'm just kind of going through somewhat of a approaching 50s metamorphosis. And I'm actually really excited because I've been watching 50-year-olds for a while. And they just seem to really love their lives. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all about that. 40s is my favorite decade. And it was my hardest decade by far. But my 50s, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been watching you 50-year-olds How many 50-year-olds do we have in the room tonight? Okay. I watch you. I'm like, oh, yeah. You just seemed like, you know what? I kind of know who I am. And you know what the amazing thing about 50-year-olds? They start the process of not caring what you think about them. This is when you start shopping at Costco for all your clothes. You walk into Costco in your 20s like, these clothes are horrible. These are for old people. In your 50s, you're like, well, actually look pretty nice. I told myself to never do that. I was in Costco a month ago and I thought, those pants, I actually kind of like those pants. And I bought them. It's a weird psychological thing. It's like, man, Costco has everything I need. Why would I look anywhere else? I'm just going there. But I'm not going to submit myself to that because I just can't. I just can't. And then you move into your 60s. And I've had the privilege to lead really large environments with 60-year-olds. And man, 60-year-olds are something else. They really don't care what you think. They have no value for your thoughts about their life. Because they've reached a point they say, you don't know what you're talking about. And this is why 60-year-olds and social media are the best friendship. I'm convinced, my dad and my mom, I'll just speak about them, and I know other ones. My mom has passed, my dad's in his 70s, but when they were in their 60s, I remember I'd get up in the morning and my mom would post something, and I'm like, Mom, you can't post that. She's like, you can't tell me what to do. Mom, you do not understand. You're creating headaches for me. She's like, so? It's her way of saying, I brought you in this world. I can take you out of this world. My dad could care less. How many 60-year-olds do we have in here? Yeah, it's true. You just don't care. You're like, I've seen enough now. I know who I really am. Now, 70-year-old, I feel like what I've noticed, observed, it's like a repeat of your 50s, but it's just 10 times better. And then when you get into your 80s and 90s, at least what I hear from people I'm around, and my grandparents I have one left, and so three of the four have passed. But I remember in their last birthday, they started asking the question, how many more birthdays am I going to have? So even just our relationship to time is fascinating. And I want you to just think about this for a moment. What are you doing with your time? And how these two equations intersect is really interesting to me. In Job 38, there's this amazing conversation with God and Job. And if you're not familiar with the story of Job, it's probably because you were told not to read the book in the Bible. Job is one of the most difficult books to read. I mean, Judges is pretty rough too, and Numbers and Leviticus is just flat out boring, but Judges is so depressing about what sin and evil can do to humanity. But what I love about the book of Judges is God always finds someone to raise up to save a nation. And the overarching narrative of Judges is that God is looking for one individual that will step up to the plate and save a nation. But Job is just sad. It's confusing. At one point in the beginning of Job, there's a conversation with God and Satan. And it's weird because all the angels are there too, and Satan showed up, and Satan began to ask God some questions that I hope he never asked about me. And the questions sound like this: hey, God, Job only serves you because of how you blessed him. And at the time, Job was very wealthy, highly successful. He was at the top of the game. He was the Elon Musk in sheer wealth of his time. And Satan goes, hey, God, the reason why Job is following because you blessed him. And God says, not true. And Satan says, well, can I prove it? God said, sure. Which is another way of saying, can I mess with his life to prove that he is not following you outside of because you've blessed him? And God said, okay, you just can't take his life. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like that theology. I don't know where to put that theology. And so from Job, the beginning of Job, through most of the book, is just sad story of what the enemy did to Job. He lost his entire family. He lost his entire livestock. He lost every property. He lost most, if not all, of his friends. His entire life was destroyed by Satan. So as you can imagine, Job was like, God, what is the deal? This makes no sense to me. And he's in so much anguish, and he's so much despair and sadness and tragedy. And then you get to Job 38, verse 1. Job crying out to God, and God says, Job, prepare yourself like a man. I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to answer me. That's not much empathy right there. That's not what we want God to do in the dark seasons of our life. We want God to come along and be the shepherd and just love on us and care for us and just do what we want him to do, take care of our heart. And so I would imagine Job was like, God, can you help me out here? And God said, no, prepare yourself like a man. I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to answer me. And the first thing God says, where were you when I created the heavens and the earth? And he just continued, where were you when I determined the boundaries of water? Where were you when I've created these places where snow is reserved for battles? Where were you when I reserved a reservoir of hail in the heaven that when battles happen, I'll release hail on these battlefields? Where were you when I determined this and that, set the boundaries and the boundaries of the sky and the universe and the planet? Where were you? And it's fascinating to me that God is answering with who he is instead of explaining why. In our journey of being humans, we're constantly asking God why and what. And God is saying who. You need to get this. We are traveling through our life, experiencing time, wrestling with his will and human free will, trying to figure that out. And all of that together makes us go, why? God, why this? And what about this? And God's like, where were you when I created the heaven and the earth? The answer to all your existential longing is who he is, not why it is. This is why Paul could say, I am content because God exists. Some of us, our contentment is based on what he's done for us. Some of our contentment is based on what we know he can do for us. Some of our faith is just lodged in, I know God can do something for me, he can do something for me. I think all of the algorithms of heaven are not trying to prove how God can do for us, but it's to get our attention on who he is. So I want to propose to you, all this tension you feel, all the tension, the paradox of decision-making, human free will and God's free will, and time, and am I wasting my time? What am I doing with the rest of my life? All of that is leading you to this to go, I want to know who you are. But the problem is we're asking why, and what, and what, and what, and God's saying, who? There's a great story in the Old Testament where Joshua is going to battle. And an angel shows up and stands before him, and Joshua knows he's in the presence of the divine. And he says, are you for us or against us? And I love the answer. I'm in charge of the army. He didn't even answer Joshua's question. He said, I'm in charge of the army. And Joshua said, okay, I know my place now. You see, we want God to be a vending machine that we get to choose. God, I'm in this season. Can I push this button and you answer this for me? And God's saying, where were you when I created the heavens and the earth? Where were you? Another moment where Moses is standing at the burning bush and talking to a burning bush, which is odd in of itself. And the voice is coming from the bush telling Moses, I'm going to use you to set the entire nation of Israel free. I'm going to use you. Moses is starting to warm up to the idea, and then he said, well, what do I tell Pharaoh? Who do I tell that sent me? And what do I tell him? And God just says, I am, which is not the answer you're looking for. What I want you to understand tonight as we wrap up this spectacular, extraordinary 3 days, God is leading you to who he is, not why it is. So ask different questions. Change your curiosity from why here to who he is. Because when you change your direction and question to who he is, you begin to ask different questions. When we look at culture, when we look at all these things, when we look at humanity, when we look at leaving this place, and my dream is that what happened in the last 3 days doesn't just end here with a period, but that it actually opened up another chapter in your life that you get to begin to write the story. And Jesus demonstrates through his life, he was playing chess while the world was playing checkers. He demonstrates with his intelligence, his brilliance, his creativity of how to actually bridge the divine dimension with the human dimension. And you'll notice that you find Jesus intersecting with the poorest of the poor. And the next moment he's interacting with the most elite of society. And then he's interacting with the most left ideologies you can imagine, all the way to the right ideologies that you can imagine. The reason why Jesus was accused of being so many things, because he was so many things. He was able to move in and out of culture and the different dimensions of culture. And there's a word that I use, he was seamless. He moved into this part of humanity, into this part of humanity. They could not box him. My dream for the future of the body of Christ is that we will be a people that are seamless in culture. The level of intelligence, the level of brilliance, the level of creativity, to be able to move from one dimension of humanity into another dimension of humanity. Not to try to get all of humanity into your dimension, but you have the ability to interface and interact with all the dimensions of humanity. This is what I dream about. This is what I long for to happen in the body of Christ. This is what I long for you in your life. That when you leave this space, you would look at your city differently. You would look at your city from a very different perspective. You look at your people from a very different perspective. You look at your relationship from a very different perspective. So my final charge before we wrap this up is, don't let any political ideology determine your ceiling of generosity. Don't let any political ideology determine your ceiling of kindness. Don't let any political ideology determine your ceiling of creativity, ingenuity, and being beautiful. Don't let any political ideology determine how you act. Rise above it, because the kingdoms of this world are actually underneath another kingdom. Don't let any religious framework determine how generous you are. Don't let any religious framework determine how kind to be to all of humanity. Don't let any religious framework determine how much beauty you can bring into this world and who you can bring it to or not bring it to. Don't let any religious framework determine your level of kindness to humanity. I could keep going, but this is my charge to you. We represent a kingdom that is beyond what the world understands. And I want to challenge you as we wrap up this time. Don't let any system of this world determine how much beauty you bring to it, how much kindness you bring to it, how much goodness you bring to it, how much generosity, how much good. Don't let that determine it. Jesus clearly demonstrates to all of humanity kindness, goodness. He introduces them to another dimension. So why don't you stand? I want to pray. I want to pray, and this feels like a commissioning to me. It feels like a charge to me, and I hope you feel that in my heart. I feel that in your heart, of what's in my heart. It is a call to humanity. It's a call to look at the world differently. And it's to recognize that compartmentalization is no longer needed. Let's begin to become a seamless person to interact and to understand that God is answering with the who and not the why. So, Father, I thank you for